These little Christmas trees are really good fun to make. They're quite quick. You'll need some triangles of cotton fabric, not a stretch fabric, and some wadding to go in the inside. I'll have a chat about that later. All you need to do is cut out 6 triangles. Now, it doesn't matter the size of the triangles as long as they're symmetrical. So I've got my 6 pieces here, and I'm going to sew them together in 3 lots of 3. So put them face together, and it's important where I'm going to start sewing from as well. Make sure they're lined up, and I'm going to start sewing not from the centre here, but from about there, and sew all the way around just with a straight stitch and finish off here. So I've got a gap across the bottom, about that wide, and I'll show you why in a second. So just a straight stitch on your sewing machine. I'm going to go quite close to the edge, back tack just to lock the stitch, and then sew up to the corner. Pivot your fabric around so you get a nice sharp corner. Make sure they're lined up and sew all the way down to the next point. Pivot again, oops, down to the next one. Needle in the down position, just need to go a little bit more to get into the corner there, and then across in a home run, just a few inches in, and then back tack, because I'm going to turn this inside out. So snip off your loose threads as you go to keep that nice and neat. Put across the ends of the corners, and that makes sure that you get a nice sharp point when you turn it the other way. Just straight across, and that cuts down on the bulk of the fabric as you turn it inside out. Just push those through. You may need to press them at this point, but I shan't for speed's sake. And just be careful you don't push your scissors all the way through, but I'm just pushing out the points just a little bit further. Now when you've done all 3 pieces, where the opening is, just fold that in so it's nice and neat, and you don't have to press it. If it's cotton it should crease anyway, and just make that a nice sharp line, and then put your 3 branches together, making sure that all of those seams are tucked in and lined up. So I've got my points all together, and I've got the base of the tree together, and I'm going to sew straight down the centre. So again, I'm just going to back tack, so that makes it stronger. I'm going to point my points all together. I'm sewing in red, by the way, just so you can see where the stitches are. If I was doing this properly, then I'd use either a pink or maybe a white with this fabric. And you'll notice that it's not Christmassy fabric. I don't think it needs to be, because this could be an ornament for all year round. So this is what my tree is looking like now. Chop off the excess threads. And then I'm going to need to stuff it, which is why you have the openings at the bottom here. So these branches open out like pages, and then you'll need to take your wadding. Now I did say we'd have a chat about wadding, because if you buy wadding as Kapok, it'll be quite expensive. If you have an old hollow fibre pillow, which this was, you can literally pull it to pieces and use the fibres. And if you don't have an old pillow, have a look at prices, because if you were to buy a hollow fibre pillow, it'll probably only cost you £2 or £3 for a really cheap one. For Kapok, it'll probably cost you about 12. So have a look at the alternatives before you spend a lot of money. I'm just going to push that wadding into each one of these sections and keep it nice and tight, so we don't get a baggy tree. Oops. Push it in there. you need quite a bit. It's surprising how much actually goes in. You just seem to be able to keep feeding and feeding it in there. And I'm just using a skewer to push it into the corners. That's looking nice and fat. And I think we could even put a bit more in. And even a bit more. So you can see where we're going. You'll carry on with every one of those branches and they will be nice and tightly packed. So they sit really tightly together. What I've done with this one is to decorate it. I've just sewn some beads on with a gold thread, and the thread looks a little bit like tinsel. And then I've literally glued it onto a little plant pot. Now the openings underneath there, you're not going to see those because it's underneath the tree. But all you need to do here is to sew them over. I'm using red again, I wouldn't do normally. And if you can, use a ladder stitch. So I'm just going to do a couple of stitches here just to lock my thread in place. And a ladder stitch is an invisible stitch, but it won't be in red. So you go in and out one side like so, and then like a ladder, pick the fabric up on that side. Try and keep them as tiny as you can. Poke in the extra stuffing that keeps coming out. Pick up the stitches again a bit longer and carry on. As you pull that through, you see, even with the red, it's disappearing. So if that was in white, then you really wouldn't see that. And that gives a nice neat edge if you're going to see. If you're not going to see, then you can do that so much quicker and just stitch over and over. Again, using quite a small stitch in the same colour thread. So that disappears. Now you can try this with different shapes. That's a triangle for a tree. This is what it looks like with a circle. And I've put a ribbon on the top, so that could be a Christmas bauble, or you could put potpourri inside or lavender and hang that over a coat hanger. Or you could even use a heart shape. This is a little bit more fiddly. And the reason I'm showing you this one is because my stitches weren't very neat, but I've found a way of disguising those. So you can see just on the top, which is like, that's as if it were the tree, but it's a heart shape, it goes in. So that's the little bit that I've sewn together. So just to disguise the stitches, I'm going to make it look quite deliberate by putting quite a generous amount of glue, because it does soak into fabric, all the way down the seam. This glue dries clear, so don't worry too much if there's a little bit excess, but it will dry shiny, so don't leave too much of an excess. And then I'm simply going to add some of this trim. It's not going to come away, this is really good glue. Chop off the bottom and leave that to dry. That covers up my mistakes. It looks deliberate. And then I can just put a loop in the centre and I've got another really unusual decoration.